having access to some great art books over the years has been a tremendous help in my own education as an artist. And today I want to talk about a book that I've written about on my blog before, but I want to go ahead and show you firsthand what's inside the book. But this book is actually by Dan Gerhartz. He's a tremendous artist from Kewaskum, Wisconsin, and I just love his work. Every time I look at it, I'm very inspired, and if there was one word that could describe Dan's book, it would be inspiring. The book is called Not Far From Home, The Paintings of Dan Gerhartz. It's a beautiful book that he's put out a couple of years ago, and it's quickly become one of my favorites. And I'll show you why in just a second. But before I actually get into this, I want to also mention this as well. Dan is one of the sponsors of an art contest that I'm having called You Be the Judge Art Contest, in which it allows viewers to participate by voting for their favorite paintings, ultimately deciding who the grand prize winner will be. And Dan has donated a copy of his tremendous instructional art DVD called Her Mother's Locket, and it's 6 hours long, and it's a fantastic educational art video. I've seen it several times, and Dan takes you from start to finish on how he produced this painting. So if you get a chance, I would definitely highly recommend taking a look at Dan's video, Her Mother's Locket. He's also coming out with a brand new video, which is actually going to be available on Blu-ray, as well as a download and DVD also, that you might want to check out as well. But anyhow, I just wanted to go ahead and show you what's inside this book because I think it's absolutely fantastic. One of the things I really like about Dan's book here is that there are so many full-page color reproductions throughout the entire book, and these aren't just your average color reproductions. These are by far some of the best reproductions that I've ever seen in an art book in recent years. The reason I say that is because these are crystal clear, beautiful color, and the quality itself. The reason I think it's so important to have really clear reproductions is so that you can study from the images themselves, because a lot of times I'm not able to have access to some of these, a lot of these original paintings, no matter which artist I'm looking at, whether it's Dan's work or whether it's a book on Sargent or Sorolla. If you don't have access to museums or to be able to actually see the originals, having a book that contains beautiful reproductions is the next best thing, because whenever I want to study a particular area of a painting, or if I'm having trouble on a painting myself and I need some inspiration, I'll just pull out a book on a great artist that I like, and instantly just be inspired by their work. And I'll also study their work. I'll study each brushstroke, each color, beautiful temperature changes within a painting. And then a lot of times I'll take a magnifying glass if I need to see more detail, and I'll actually take a magnifying glass and hold it up to the image itself and be able to see a lot more detail as well. But Dan has put this book together beautifully. It's just fantastic. He's included a lot of close-ups throughout the book, so you're able to see the entire image, but then you're also able to get a close-up view as well to see each of the brush strokes and be able to study from. And that's extremely important for artists, because in order to be able to produce great art, you have to have access to great art and be able to see what's possible in paint. And Dan's work just shows you what is really possible in oil paint, and just the way he handles his edges. You can just follow these edges around just beautifully. Edges, values, color, drawing. Dan's work has all of the key elements that I think, in my opinion, produce a great work of art. And just a beautiful book. But anyhow, it's 176 pages, the whole book is. And there are actually 128 full-color images that are inside the book. You can see as I'm flipping through this, every page is a full color reproduction, which is amazing, really, because any one of these is the quality of each one of these images is such that you could actually just almost take it out of the book and frame each one, just put it on your studio wall. I'm amazed each time I look at this book, because it's just the reproductions alone are just amazing. As I flip through this, I'm always fascinated. I've had the opportunity to meet Dan a couple of times, and I will say this about him, that he is actually one of the nicest guys I have ever met. He's extremely generous, extremely giving, and I first met Dan a couple of years ago. I was actually on a trip. I was up north, and I was on a trip back home in the States, and on my way back I was actually nearby where Dan lived, and gave him a call and asked if it would be okay to stop by and visit him in his studio, and to be able to see some of his work in person, and just to be able to meet him, because I always enjoy meeting the artists, meeting the people behind the paintings. And so he generously and kindly said, sure, go ahead and stop by. And so I did, and got to spend a little time with him in his studio and be able to talk about art. And I just had a great time. And I was so impressed with Dan and his character that I really wanted him to be a part of this art contest that I was going to be having, because I thought that his work would be an inspiration to others, just like it's been an inspiration to me over the years. And so that's what we did. And then actually last year, this is one of my favorites here, I get sidetracked, but last year I saw Dan again. We met up down in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I had the opportunity to spend the morning with him. We actually went over to the studio of Joe Bowler, my good friend and mentor, the master portrait painter, and went over there and talked about art all morning, and just hearing Joe and Dan talk about art, and being able to hear both of them and really inspiring. Had a great time visiting with him, and I was just as impressed with him, probably more the second time around than the first time, because he's just such a giving person, and he's really just a great guy. If you ever have the opportunity to either take a workshop with him or to meet him, I think you'll see what I mean. But anyhow, I just wanted to give you a glimpse inside of this book, because it is absolutely gorgeous. As you're flipping through this, from an artist's perspective, Dan has nailed it. He really has, because he's given artists the book that they're looking for, which are large reproductions, large crystal clear reproductions with good color. Every one of these, there's no black and whites really with today's technology. There really shouldn't be any black and white photos in an art book, in my opinion, unless they're old photos that were taken in black and white. But with today's technology, there's really no excuse for not producing great art books like this on a regular basis. But Dan has just really outdone himself on this, and every time I get a chance to tell others about art books that I like or that I recommend, or artists that I would recommend to study, Dan's name always comes up as one of the top ones, just for the fact that I just love these. Not only his work, but just this book in general is just has been a great help to me. I'll even show you this. You can see this is actually my own copy. So I've got fingerprints. I've even got some paint on the front cover here, because it's been well used. It's been opened many times. A lot of times during the day as I'm painting, if I come across an area that I'm struggling with, and I remember a painting, whether it's in Dan's book or another book from an artist that I like, I will open up the book and try to find out how they solved certain problems, and then try to incorporate those same solutions into my own work. And then sometimes, if there are just times when artists need inspiration. That's one thing that I've learned over the years, is that every artist needs to be inspired at some point, no matter if you're the most well-known artist or you're just starting out. Every artist needs to be inspired at some point in their career, and having a book like this to be able to open up is just like having instant inspiration right in front of you. And each time that I open this book up, I'm always inspired just to pick up a brush, really, and start painting. But Dan's work is excellent. If you're not familiar with his work, I would highly recommend taking a look at his website. He's got several paintings on there, as well as the books that he offers, as well as the instructional art DVDs. And that's DanielGerhartz.com is the website. There's one thing I wanted to show you in here. Let's see if I can find it. I don't think I've passed it, but there's also some great examples of where is it? Here's another example of a great close-up of this painting here. But throughout the book, Dan also gives, here it is. Throughout the book, Dan also gives some great examples of not only the finished painting, but also the preliminary study that he did beforehand, which gives you a great idea of how he goes about establishing ideas and compositions, and basically just getting his thoughts down in a study form before actually taking on the final painting here. And you can compare the two, and it's a really great way of studying, and this is very beneficial for artists, and I like how he's put that in there. There's also a section in the back which is very interesting as well, which artists are going to like. I'll show you a couple more images here. Just beautiful stuff. But there's a section in the back where Dan actually shows you a demonstration of how he progression shots of how he went from the beginning stages of the painting to the final stages, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I just came across this one, and this was actually the first Dan Gerhartz painting that I had ever seen. I was actually a student in college, or just out of college. I can't remember, sometime around that time period, and I was traveling out west and came across this painting in a show out west, and it just totally floored me, because I hadn't seen or heard of Dan Gerhartz until that time, and since then I've been following his work, and just very impressed with him as a person as well. Let me show you that. Here's another favorite of mine as well. That contre-jour lighting, which basically means against the light, that rim lighting that goes around from behind. You have this sort of a halo effect that happens around the figure and around the cat here. Just beautiful warm and cool color changes that you can incorporate into a painting when you use that type of lighting, and Dan has done just a beautiful job there. I'm looking at the size of this. When I was at his studio, a lot of these are larger works. This is a 48 by 30, and it's just amazing to see an original work of art full size and full scale. And having seen some of these on Dan's walls at his studio in Wisconsin was a real treat. But let me just show you. Let's get to it here. There's the one section in the back. Here it is. It's a step-by-step demonstration. So basically it shows you what the subject looked like, shows you how he blocked it in, and then the progression shots along the way. And then Dan tells about it as he goes along. He actually has a great addition to his website. It's called Technical Insights, and basically it's like a blog that Dan does, and a lot of the entries that he puts into that blog are actually a result of this book, and he goes into detail about how he came about painting some of these subjects, and how he went about what his thoughts were basically on how to paint some of these paintings that are in his book. And if you get a chance, I would definitely recommend taking a look at that. He's got some great information on there, and it's really really good stuff, and just so thankful that he's so willing to share. That's one thing about Dan and some of the other artists that I've asked to be a part of the You Be the Judge art contest, is that they're so willing to share. When it comes to art, there are no secrets. Everything that you want to learn or need to learn is out there somewhere. There are no secrets, and these great artists like Dan Gerhartz realize that and are willing to share their knowledge and experience to help others, and that's one thing that I'm really impressed with about Dan and his work. But anyhow, I just wanted to share this with you. Again, it's called Not Far From Home. It's 176 pages, and it has 128 full color images. And if you get a chance, I would highly recommend taking a look at more of Dan's work at danielgerhartz.com. And if you want to learn more about the You Be the Judge art contest, you can visit youbethejudgeartcontest.com for all the details. Anyhow, I hope this book will be an inspiration to you, and one. It's definitely one that I know you will enjoy. I've enjoyed it for a couple of years now, and am very impressed with it. But anyhow, take care, and I wish you all the best in your artwork, and have a great week of painting.